the time I was 18, I decided, along with another friend, to leave school and go down and sign up on my birthday, May the 14th, 1940. That was at the reserve, and officially I signed in July 1940, and I was asked if I would like to learn the Morse code, so I took a course in telegraphy for the next 6 months, which gave me a promotion to a telegraphist, first class. From there, I was shipped to Prince Rupert, where I picked up HMCS Gifford. I'm sorry, I picked up HMCS Standpoint, a tugboat, and I was on examination service there for about 4 months or 5 months, and December the 7th came along, and of course the Japanese War was on with the United States, and being a tugboat, we were sent to Skagway, Alaska, where we picked up 15 to 20 Japanese fishing boats, and we were instructed to tow them to Vancouver. The Japanese, of course, were not there. They had been sent down to a concentration camp outside of Vancouver. Telegraphists were a little short supplied, and it just seemed that I was being drafted from one to the other. So once we got down to Vancouver and over to Victoria, I was transferred to a Q-boat, and I was on it for about 6 weeks, and it wasn't too long before I was again transferred to another small ship, and I managed to sail on about 4 small ships until about 1943. I was finally drafted to the East Coast, where I picked up another ship, Sudaroy 4, as a telegraphist. I was only on it for about 6 or 8 weeks, and I was called again to be drafted off of that and sent to Port Arthur to pick up HMCS Portage. We commissioned the Portage in 1943, and we sailed from Port Arthur down to Halifax, and we were on the Triangle Run. That was between Halifax, Newfoundland, New York, one trip, and then maybe around there, and then to Boston. And on one of the trips from New York to Newfoundland, I got sick. My back always did bother me, and I was sent to the sick bay. And I spent about 5 weeks in the hospital in Newfoundland, where I met Alec Norrie. He was from Scotland, but he was a British sailor, and we got to know each other pretty well during that hospital stay, and he said that if you ever get to Glasgow, be sure to go and visit his parents. Well, as luck had it, I got drafted to HMCS Gifford, and it was due to sail from Newfoundland over to Londonderry, Ireland. And as the Dieppe plan was in progress, we weren't allowed to go into, have a holiday to go south into England, so fortunately I went to Glasgow, and I did meet Mr. and Mrs. Norrie, where I had a wonderful 4 days. Unbeknownst to myself at the time, my father had written to the Norries in December '44 and thanked them for taking good care of me. Now, I want to relate this because in 1980, my wife and I, along with a church group, visited England and Scotland, and again, I contacted Alec Norrie, who by this time in 1980 was a bank manager, and he contacted, when we got together, he drove from Glasgow down to Edinburgh, and he brought my dad's letter to me, which is quite a keepsake for me, because my father died in 1979, and he never did realize that the Norrie family, a wonderful Scottish family, saved that letter for over 35 years. After leaving the HMCS Gifford, I was drafted off into the base when in May the war ended. It may have been August, no, it would be in May, because during one of the trips after landing in Halifax, I met Daisy McLeod, whom I had contacted her by wire, and when we landed in Newfoundland to take a course, the war ended, and consequently I was the only about 3 of us who hadn't signed the Pacific, and if you had signed the Pacific, you're going to go on 30 days leave, so consequently we signed to go to the Pacific, and I immediately phoned Daisy and or contacted her, and we were married on June the 1st, 1945. With a very, the 2 years that we went together, I was at sea most of the time, but we did manage to get along very well, and I was sure that she was the one. And even today, we've had 61 years together, and 4 grandchildren, and 4 children and 11 grandchildren, and at the present time 5 great-grandchildren, 1 on the way. I took a course in St. Hyacinthe, Quebec, to learn how to type, because we already knew how to receive and send the Morse code. However, in August the war ended, and I immediately was sent to Saskatoon, where I received my discharge, and my wife went to Halifax for a couple of weeks until we got settled, and she joined me later on, and I was discharged on September the 5th, 1945, on my mother's birthday.